I know what I'm gonna look at.
Maybe. You have an active passport?
I think you're safe. I think you're safe. Okay, we're going to call to order the May 14th, 2018 meeting of the Regional Transit Board of Directors. Would the clerk please call the roll to establish quorum?
Director Budge. Here. Director Hanson will be a little late. Director Harris.
Here.
Director Hume.
Here.
Director Jennings.
Here.
Director Miller.
Here.
Director Morin.
Here.
Director Natoli.
Here.
Director Chenier. Director Cerna.
Here.
Chair Kennedy.
Here.
With that, we have a quorum at 100 votes. This meeting of the Sacramento Regional Transit District will be cablecast without interruption on Metro Cable 14, the local government affairs channel. Tonight's meeting will air on Wednesday, May 16th at 9 a.m. and replayed on Friday, May 18th at noon, and webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv. It is also closed caption. Members of the audience wishing to address the board should fill out a speaker card located at the rear of the room and provide it to me or Adam. Please speak into the microphone and state your name for the record. We would appreciate everyone turning off their cell phones. Thank you. And noting the arrival of Director Chenier.
Thank you very much. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item of business is public addresses the board on matters not on the agenda.
Thank you. We have 3 cards. The first of which is Barbara Stanton. We will have 4 cards when Arthur turns his in. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair and members of the board, directors. Barbara Stanton, ridership for the Masses Group. A long time ago, we were asked to write a letter of support for travel training for the YOLO bus bid. And our question is, are we going to see the general manager report on the issue? And if so, when will that be reported to the public? And what was the outcome of the bid? And how much did the whole thing cost? So that's our question. We did write a letter of support for travel training because we like the travel training that paratransit provides to people. So that's my question.
Mr. Lee, you have a response?
Yes, actually, we bid on the contract, and they award the contract to the existing, service provider, which is a private service provider, and our bid very close to their bid. And
Okay.
Considering they have done that thousands of times, the international company they bid on thousands of this type of projects.
And did it cost RT a lot of money to put the bid in, and as far as man hours? Or?
It did not, but we did. This is the first time we bid something like that, and we're kind of like, proud we were in the final list.
Great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Mike Birnbaum.
Thank you, Chair Kennedy, members of the board. Hey, we love awards. Who doesn't love awards? We were so ecstatic to hear from CalSTA and Caltrans of funding coming in that was just so tremendous for service in Sacramento. I'll defer specifically RT's award during the general manager's report, but some related awards that will provide of much big benefit to Sacramento and connectivity to RT. Wanted to tell you about. In case you haven't heard and the public hasn't heard yet, the Valley Rail Project was one of the award recipients from CalSTA, which will be a benefit directly to Altamont Corridor Express and the San Joaquin Joint Powers Authority. The award would allow one Altamont Corridor Express round trip to Sacramento, 2 additional San Joaquin round trips to Sacramento, and several new stations to be built along the Sacramento subdivision north of Stockton, Robert Cabral Station in downtown Stockton. We're really ecstatic about it, and I know that the JPA board will go over much more of that next Friday of their meeting in Modesto at 10:30 in the morning. On a related note, the Shasta Regional Transportation Authority received a CalSTA award to eventually provide frequent bus service along the Interstate 5 corridor from Redding, Williams, Corning, Woodland, Sacramento International Airport, and downtown Sacramento. Just spoke with them today. The soonest they think they could start service would be October 2019. FAST, Fairfield and Sassoon Transit, was an award recipient. They're looking to combine 3 bus routes into one route, which would operate from Sacramento, Davis, Vacaville, Dixon, and Fairfield all the way to the Pleasant Hill Contra Costa BART station. They're looking to start that service this July. That's so exciting. And the Capitol Corridor was an award recipient to move from the Niles-Newark line over down to the Mulford alignment, which is the parallel route of the Coast Starlight, for service south of Oakland Coliseum. It will help to increase speeds and increase frequency to San Jose. Such a great award day since the last meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Felix Huerta.
Good afternoon, Chair. My name is Felix Mario Huerta Jr. I am the representative for Operating Engineers Local Union Number 3, AFL-CIO. On May 3rd, I submitted a petition to represent 66 employees that work here at Regional Transit. They are management and professional employee group. It is not the management and confidential group. The management and confidential group contains Mr. Henry Lee, whom I would not want to represent since he's management. It contains the Labor Relations Director. I also would not want to represent him since he's confidential and needs to be maintained separately. I would not want to represent General Counsel. So there are 16 positions that I did not request to negotiate and represent. Thanks. Of that 66 employees, a supermajority of the employees have filed a petition. We have submitted that petition to Regional Transit and to the State Mediation and Conciliation Services for processing. The PUC rules that govern unionization says very clearly that public employees have the legal right to organize, including management, confidential, and professional employees. And I would hope that Mr. Lee would allow them to unionize without fear of reprisal, intimidation, threats. It's my understanding that your Labor Relations Director has sought to try to figure out who the organizers of this campaign are. I'm here to tell you if he touches one hair on that person's head, we're going to have a problem. They have the right to organize. They have the right to organize without fear of retaliation, without interrogation, and that's what he's been trying to do. So I'm here to tell you, let the process go forward. I've asked state mediation to process this petition. The local rules clearly say and these are your local rules. A statement that the employee organization has in its possession proof of employee support as herein defined to establish that a majority of the employees in the unit claim to be appropriate have designated the employee organization to represent them in their employment relations with the district. Such written proof will be submitted for confirmation to the labor relations officer or to a mutually agreeable third party. And that third party is State Mediation and Conciliation Services. The law that gave you the right to exist, the PUC, clearly states, if there is a question whether a labor organization represents a majority of the employees or whether the proposed unit is or is not an appropriate unit, such matter shall be submitted to State Mediation and Conciliation Services for disposition. I ask that you instruct your general manager and your labor relations manager to let that process go forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions? Brenda Anderson. Somebody give Brenda a microphone. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. I'm going to narrow it down today. I can always write a letter. My question is the transfer of authority from board to CEO, general manager. And I noticed in some of the resolutions, I don't know if it's based on the situation that you feel the need to transfer, or the board doesn't have the authority and they have to transfer it to the CEO, or what is how does it work? I don't know the process. So I'm asking for clarification as to why and how the board would transfer authority for any decision of the resolution or purchase agreement to the manager, and vice versa. So who has the table and who has the ball is what I want to know, and why. Why do you have yours and why do you have his, and what's the difference? Because if you're going to make a decision and based on what you decide, something goes forward, he makes a decision, and based on what his decision is, something goes forward. I'm confused. Thank you very much. You can get back to me if you need to.
Thank you, Brenda. You know, you're always welcome to come before the meeting and talk with staff to ask those questions. Appreciate it. Jeffrey Tartagia.
Thank you. Well, since Steve Henson is not here today,
Let's pick on him.
I will remind this board that there is a streetcar meeting this week. There is also a SACOG, should we say, what is it called? Coordinating Transit on Wednesday. And then there is a SACOG Board of Directors meeting on Thursday. Now, I believe Saturday, there was a arena event that was Healthy Kids. Phil Cernan was there. I never saw the virtual pop-up for RT that was supposed to be there from 10 to 3. I do not know what happened. I alert you to that. The other thing, Patrick Kennedy, please reveal as a conflict of interest. You are the chairman of this board, and you are approving microtransit. You are also the chairman of the Sacramento Transit Authority.
I am not, Jeffrey. I am not.
Oh, you're no longer Sacramento Transit Authority.
For many months.
Ah, good. Well, anyway, so I'm glad there's no conflict of interest in voting on what I thought was only $8 million, and I see $12 million here. I wonder where those funds came from. But anyway, as my time is getting halfway there, I thank you for getting some of the display boards up, particularly at the Sac Valley Station. They've been down for more than a week. I do not know whether the 29th Street one has been corrected. I do not know whether the Broadway one has been corrected. I'm glad to see that Friday somebody is checking that the Sac Valley Connect card is functioning, because I've had 3 Fridays and I've had more than 51 buses where the Connect card does not function and work. I do not know how many other places the Connect card is not functioning. I hear it's partly a computer glitch in timing and some other things of operators not knowing the proper way to start a, should we say, Connect card system up so it will say out of service rather than how calling through. And listening to the conversation of calling in to what you have to do to reset it is rather fascinating, to get the Connect card properly to work. Other issues I will bring up is I believe Mr. Walker presented you guys with many tools. I hope you listened to them at the, should we say, backup meeting, because to get, you know, the objectives really, what does RT need to know? I think you guys really need to know who your riders are to know how in the world you increase ridership. And I will still go back and say, having only several people for Connect card and for also to get the answering responses, because I've been on the 51 3 times where it's been 15 minutes before I go to it's a recording.
All right, thank you, Jeffrey, and I encourage you to meet with Director Harris, who is the chair of STA. So, Arthur Ketterling.
I don't think Jeff appreciated that.
Find a way to get you back.
Thank you. I'm Arthur Ketterling, and I was just wanting to find out if Mr. Lee can answer it probably quicker. I was looking at the STA meeting. I believe it was about the end of March or the beginning of April that you've mentioned that they were going to be going to Folsom later, and is that still scheduled?
Yes.
It is still scheduled?
Yes, it's June 17th.
Yes. Someone asked me, and I told them as far as I knew that it was scheduled yet, and I was wondering on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Arthur. That is all of the cards we have. If there's no other member of the public that would like to address the board, then we'll go to the next item.
Next item is the consent calendar, items 1 through 16, noting that you have speakers on 14 and 15.
Are there any questions on the balance absent 14 and 15 of the board?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Pull 11, please.
Yep. Any others?
Mr. Chair, if I could, just a quick question on item 12.
Okay.
12.
You don't need to pull it off of the consent calendar.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's read into the record item 11, please.
Item number 11, resolution approving the second and third amendments to the purchase and sale agreement between Sacramento Regional Transit District and Community Housing Works for the sale of 880 through 936 Arden Way, located in Sacramento, California. And Eric Komar and Brent Berniker are here to answer any questions.
Director Budge.
Thank you. I simply am uncomfortable with approving a reduction in purchase price when that reduction isn't yet determined until later tonight. I mean, if this were if this were an action item to approve the Second Amendment, that would be fine, it seems. But the Third Amendment specifically says wherein the purchase price is reduced by an amount determined by the board in closed session. And we don't have closed session at the beginning anymore, so we're being asked to vote on something that's not determined, and it seems like we should determine it first. I mean, either that or extend the due diligence period to the 11th of June and vote on it at the next meeting.
That's a good question. I see what your point is. I think the first point in this issue paper is that we'd like to get an extension, because if we don't have an extension with
Absolutely.
that piece you're comfortable with, I think as it relates to the consideration of the price, in the closed session, if you choose to not do anything with that price consideration, you have that option as well. So you still have an option to not make any changes to the price at that point in time. So I look at it as this is an option for us to extend and then go into closed session to discuss that price reduction. And if it is 0, then it could be there.
Okay, but if these people think they're getting a price reduction and they're not because of all the issues,
that can happen, though.
Then why would they want to go any further in the contract?
That's not rated.
And the 24th of May is just sort of a date out there in the middle of everything. I mean, it has no relativity considering that we don't have another meeting until the 11th of June.
So they are aware that there's a possibility the board may reject the price reduction they're requesting. If that is the case, we have extended the due diligence period accordingly, and it's possible they could at that point decide not to proceed with the purchase of the property.
Okay, but suppose they want additional time to bring back suppose they want a counter. If they've asked for something and we go to 0 and they want to come back and say something in the middle, then extending this only to the 24th of May does not allow them any time. Their option would expire before we would ever meet again.
So just let me confer with.
I mean,
Eric
if this is really a valid offer and you want to keep this thing alive,
Definitely, yeah,
when you
certainly.
consider other sales of surplus property that you've worked with the applicants on, you've worked with the potential purchaser on to kind of help them through the process and keep them going, then it seems like this is not the way to go about this.
Is what you're asking just to extend? Is that what I'm hearing then? Just I hear the dialogue, but what I'm wondering is how would you see fit? Are you saying maybe take the same issue paper with a longer extension?
Procedural.
Is that maybe an option? Because we do want, I think one thing we don't want to do is we don't want to lose this buyer, right?
Okay,
So
then
yes.
then you would want to leave open their option to come back with another offer for a request for a reduction that might not be as dramatic as it is right now. And I mean, we have no idea what the number is anyway, so.
Right.
So we're not going to know that
So-
until
so-
later tonight. So it's like
Director
this
Budge, would
is-
you like to pull this off consent entirely? I mean, I was trying to get through, maybe answer some questions, but maybe you want to hear this item?
We can hear this item. It's just that this is not the right way to go about it, it seems to me. So, I mean, if you want to hold a full hearing, that's fine, but we still have the same issue.
I'm just saying that, we're going beyond consent at this point with the questions that are being,
Well, I don't know.
so we can have a full report on it if you
I
like.
mean, that's not the way we do it, but that's okay.
Mr. Chair, could I just maybe offer a suggestion? I think it's kind of like the cart before the horse before the cart
Yeah.
question, whether that is or not. I imagine this would be a fairly brief closed session. Could we, at appropriate time, go up and take care of this in a closed session, come back down and have the item for our consideration?
That would work perfectly fine for me, Mr. Natoli.
Okay.
I'd support that.
Okay.
That's good, too.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we simply delay it to the end of the meeting?
Yes.
Do you want a motion on that?
Not at this point, because Director Natoli has a question on number 12.
Let me just go ahead and ask it.
Item number 12?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Resolution adopting a categorical exemption for the Horn Road Light Rail Station project, and James Boyle is here to answer any questions.
Okay, just a very quick one. Certainly a very supportive project, and I commend certainly the City of Rancho Cordova and Regional Transit for their work. But I just wanted to get some definition on line 3 of discussion. Talks about the initial phases of the proposed project will be funded in part by the grant. I know that the city of Rancho Cordova, certainly RT over the years, has done a number of planning efforts. So what is the initial phase and what's the amount of grant that's being sought? That's not really mentioned in any detail here. So what is?
Okay, so a little bit of the history. We've spent up to $600,000 for preliminary engineering and environmental, and that's kind of where we are now.
Okay.
And what we're seeking to do is to move into final design, which would be $1 million grant that we have received. We just are not able to expend it until we get FTA final approval on the exemption.
And what's the contemplated cost at this point in time, maybe preliminary, to actually build it?
So we're looking at approximately $8 million for construction.
I remember a time way long time ago when Gray Davis was governor and he gave us $1 million to build that station.
Yeah. Sadly, that happens.
Where'd our $1 million go?
It got spent on other stations, but nonetheless, it was designated. So anyway, okay, very good. I'm supportive.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, if there's no more questions, do I have a motion for items 1 through 10, item 12, 13, and 16?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Is there a motion for number 11?
Move to continue it to the end of the meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Thank you.
And both of those motions passed at 100%. Moving on, item number 14, resolution delegating authority to the general manager CEO to take all actions necessary to execute a grant agreement with the Sacramento Transportation Authority for the Measure A Neighborhood Shuttle Program for the operation of microtransit pilot routes. And David Goldman and Brent Berniker are here to answer your questions.
Okay, we will start with the public questions, and Jeffrey Tardagia.
Well, my public question is, from the downtown to each one, what is the purpose of the microtransit projects? You're right in the middle of where you suddenly discovered that using the, shall we say, Citrus Heights one showed you the potential of Walmart as something as a big part of your bus route. What you've learned out of Antelope and what you've learned out of Orangevale, I still have not heard whether you've even gone to the Folsom Valley, shall we say, light rail station in using that. That hasn't been disclosed. For each one of these, it seems like it should be a purpose, and I notice all the areas that are not covered with the microtransit, and also within the regards with what you call social economic disadvantaged regions, also not being covered in those regards. And the state has just designated for the county and the city what are social economically, should we say, disadvantaged areas. And the purpose, is my understanding with the STA, was this was for neighborhoods of that. And it seems like RT has grabbed the $8 million, that $1 million being set aside for that particular Proposition A money is now being utilized. So I don't believe you've answered the purpose. I don't believe, yet other agencies are very interested in this microtransit. And if you remember, Mr. Walker himself said that microtransit is not very efficient. Even when you've got on Citrus Heights 85 people, that only works out to what, 5 or 6 per hour for the hours and times that you're riding. So I'm wondering, what's your criteria for doing all this, other than it's really exciting to do and it may show you something for route optimization. But again, I don't know that Walker is even involved to see that this is a tool that would be efficient in utilization. As I was tempted to say before that I was blocked of, that you did not have for Walker the proper emphasis on what you should be doing and studying in regional transit to achieve better success, increase ridership. With his emphasis on ridership, as I've pointed out, and now, Steve, we get into the area of 51, is frequency is an issue, and you need to do something other than that to deal with the issue of capacity. That's my public comment relating to the now 0 to 10 microtransit.
Thank you. Barbara Stanton. You can make your comment.
I'm back. Barbara Stanton, Ridership for the Masses. We are concerned that North Sacramento, Del Paso Heights, Natomas area was not included in the microtransit pilot program, as were parts of South Sacramento. At one time, North Sacramento, Del Paso Heights had 3 neighborhood ride buses that filled the gap in neighborhoods where regular bus routes left out those portions of the area. They ran for many years, and then eventually RT did away with them, and we were very sad. So microtransit sounds a lot like what was, and that's the little history lesson. Again, we were wondering why North Sacramento, Del Paso Heights was totally left out of the mix, and Natomas. So we were there when Jarrett Walker said the same thing that Jeffrey said, that microtransit is not a good way to go, and we kind of are thinking, this is another neighborhood shuttle type thing that will be eventually gone by the wayside. So the bottom line to all this history is that other than the history comments, Ridership for the Masses concurs with the SAC True letter that was sent to you, I think, today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and I do believe that based upon the action taken by STA, that there is still a great amount of flexibility and nothing is set in stone, so it's a work in progress. Thank you. Any other questions, issues, comments on 14?
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Motion carries at 100 votes. Item number 15, resolution temporarily modifying the fare structure as amended, including resolutions 1703-0027 and 1801-0008, to authorize a 2-month summer student pass valid for July and August 2018, and only available on Connect Card and Zip Pass. And Casey Courtwright and Brett Bernicker are also here to answer questions.
Thank you. We have Sarah Kerber.
Hi, Sarah Kerber with the Sacramento Transit Riders Union. We just wanted to throw our support behind this program, behind the discounted student fares. And given the success of the pilot program so far, we hope that this program can continue. We believe that riders on young riders on public transit giving them a good experience and building memories with using public transit is how you build future ridership, and we support the continuation of this program. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Schneer.
Thank you. I'd be remiss if I didn't say thank you for this. I think this is another step in the way of making sure that our young people have the ability to ride public transportation, and hopefully changing culture and habit as they grow older and having them become permanent riders. So with that, I'd love to move the item.
We have one more public comment, but is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Mr. Barbaum.
Yes. Thank you, Chair Kennedy and members of the board. Yes, to the previous speaker's comment, the pilot project has been extremely successful. We were very pleased to provide research and development to what others across the region are doing. We met with RT staff about that. They did some follow-up work from our work. And one thing to keep in mind is that many in the surrounding region may not necessarily have the ridership numbers or bump in ridership, if you will, that Sacramento Regional Transit will have from the student population. It is very important to start people young and to try to get them into the habit of riding rather than driving when they are young, and you can train them on how to ride and be successful riders and people that contribute through their schooling and employment in the future to our society by having them learn how to be the best riders, but starting them when they're very young. We fully recommend moving approval of this item with one friendly amendment. we encourage you to consider bringing back either on Monday, March 11th or Monday, March 25th of 2019, consideration to continue the student summer monthly pass for the months of June, July, and August for a cost of $40 across the 3 months. Only one other transit agency, if you look in the issue paper, does it just for 2 months, and it's only in June and July, and that's El Dorado. RT is going to be, for the first time, if you approve tonight's measure, only the second agency that does it for 2 months. But if you notice and look closely, the others in comparison are doing it for 3 months. And while we recognize that in the middle of May, it might be too late this time around, just saying, to do it for all 3 months, let's see what happens over the 2 months of July and August of 2018, and then come back again either on one of those 2 Mondays in March of 2019 for the $40 consideration for June, July, and August of 2019 and every year going forward based on how successful this is. So that's our only friendly amendment to the motion before you in the issue paper. And with that, with the friendly amendment, we move approval.
Okay, thank you for that.
Mr. Chair, so I have a question.
Yes.
Okay. So I do want to join Mr. Chenier in thanking staff for this because it really supports the automatic enrollment in the summer programs that Sac City Unified has instituted for this summer. But I do have a question, though, because I had just sort of assumed that this would run through the end of every district school year that's within RT. And since Sac City is not out until the middle of June, does that mean that for the 2 weeks or so in June that the Sac City kids who've been riding the bus are left by the side of the road?
So the $20 price that we currently offer for students is good through June 30th.
Okay.
So the
All right.
$20 monthly
So
pass will
there's
exist in June.
it's
This is a
seamless.
July and August. Yes,
It's
correct.
seamless. Great.
Yes.
Super. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Barnbaum, I don't know that it's necessary for a friendly amendment. I think we can revisit it when the time comes.
Just with relative, in relation to Mr. Birnbaum's motion.
Yes.
I think what we can do, and thanks, Mike, for doing that. What I think we can do is just provide direction. I'm sure we're going to do this anyway, is following the program, we'll look at an evaluation of the program, and we can make some decisions at that point, which gives us plenty of time before next summer.
Right. Okay. Thank you
Okay,
very
I'll
much.
second that.
Appreciate your work.
Thank
you. Okay. All right. We have 2 motions in 2 seconds. Is all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Thank you.
Motion carries at 100 votes,
101.
Thank you, Mike.
plus 2 motions.
Oh, he could
Number
be a
7.
breaker, huh?
Next item is the general manager's report, item 17.
Good evening, Chair Kennedy, members of the board, and the public. I would like to begin my report by thanking Zach Chu for organizing a postcard comment writing session during the Earth Day. We received about a couple dozens of postcards, and we're reviewing them, and we'll respond if necessary. As I have said before, we're better when we receive feedback from the public and engaging them on our projects. Thank you for this correspondence. Also, I would like to start by sharing a couple of photos. In the middle of April, I participate in the Metro Chamber's Capital Cap trip along with board members Linda Budge in the middle of there. Okay. Stephen Miller, director. Pat Hume. Hey, Pat, next one. Yes. And Stephen Hansen. I don't know if we have a picture there or not. We met with regional policy makers to address the importance of public transit.
Can we change that photo, please?
Yeah, please.
Let's move on. I was impressed by the bipartisan support for transit programs. On May 2nd, Director Attorney and I wrote the GOAT line to KP International Market.
There you go. Where's Waldo?
The stations and the trains,
train.
we wrote 3 trains and about like 15 stations. All were clean and the operators were customer friendly. Riding with board members and the transit supporters is an excellent way to evaluate the system and ensure things are operating smoothly. I hope to set up additional rides with directors and our stakeholders in the future. Moving on to some very exciting news, which Mr. Mike Barbon already mentioned. At the end of April, we were informed that Sacramento has been recommended for 2 state grant awards, totaling more than $84 million. This is more than a big deal. With the total project budget $144 million after adding some federal and local match. The first grant comes from the Transit and Intercity Rail Capital Program referred to as TIRCP. We received over $64 million to begin our effort to replace 10 aging light rail vehicles in our fleet and add 10 new vehicles for GOAT Line service expansion to Folsom. These new vehicles will begin our conversion to low-floor vehicles and stations for disabled passengers and senior citizens. In addition, it includes funds for 3 peak express trains and at 8-minute service frequency or close to that on the GOAT Line in both directions to help reduce travel times and congestion along U.S. Highway 50. The reason they award us for these activities is because they encourage the expansion projects. And we ask for $400 million, but $300 million we want from the state and $100 million for the local and the federal match. But eventually they give us $84 million. It's a little bit less than 1/3, but we're very happy with that. Compared to other regions, we got way more than what our share. The TIRCP grant is coupled with Solutions for Congested Corridor Program recommend award of more than $20 million. Sacramento teamed up with Caltrans to put together a comprehensive mobility solution for the US 50 corridor. Our award will fund infrastructure track improvements, so-called double tracking, to the GOAT Line. This enhancement will allow for us to operate 15 minutes or better service frequency from Sunrise to Folsom, which will dramatically improve the riding experience and the convenience of customers living in the eastern part of the region. Adding on this wonderful news, this morning, Sacramento received another award from Caltrans, which is a $300,000 planning grant for sustainable communities, high-capacity bus corridor study for the capital region. We will review the award from TIRCP this year, last month. There were dozens of BRT, bus rapid transit-related projects, which we did not have money in the past to study. Now we get this money, we're going to start very, very hard and quickly. So we have we have information, and we are well prepared for the next round BRT-related projects. In further news regarding the GOAT Line, I would like to inform everyone about Sacarte's latest service expansion effort. On June 17th, we will formally launch extended hours on Gold Line service to historical Folsom to midnight. Currently, the last weekday train to Folsom departs downtown Sacramento at 6:19 p.m. That's the last train. This change will help many commuters who currently do not take transit for fear of being stranded without a return trip. Working with the Folsom business community and many other partners, we have scheduled a community event to celebrate the extended service on Thursday, June 14th at 5 p.m. in the historical Folsom Station. We will be back in touch with further details regarding the celebration, but we invite all of you guys to attend this event. Lastly, I want to draw attention to an item the board approved just a few minutes ago about microtransit. Talk about microtransit, I just want to add, one comment on some of, our public mention why we have program in downtown and midtown. We proposed 10 and we're going to add one or more, but if you look at 10 projects, majority of projects are in the suburban areas. And also downtown, midtown Sacramento, city of Sacramento, actually, based on the census, 20% are disadvantaged communities within downtown. And we got lots of comment about Route 51 in Saturday lunchtime. The wheelchair capacity is not enough. This microtransit will address that issue perfectly, because you can call to get a microtransit to take some of the disabled wheelchair customers from 51 route to wherever you want to go. Lots of time we notice is go to the SAC 2 Saturday meeting. Last Thursday, May 10th, the Sacramento Transportation Authority voted, chaired by Councilmember Harris again, voted to award $12 million to SAC-RT with the Neighborhood Shuttle Program. The funds will allow us to expand our widely successful Smart Ride on-demand microtransit service in 10 additional communities throughout the region. And after that meeting, staff, by working with STA staff, we added a 11th project in the northern area of Sacramento, near the El Paso, those areas. We are working with the community leaders in that area to say how we're going to draw the boundary for the microtransit. SAC-RT is committed to improving the passenger experience and providing the customer convenience in order to attract new riders. We believe our microtransit service strikes that tone and balance. And the feedback regarding the program already implemented in Central Heights, Antelope, and Orangeville has been tremendously successful. So give us a little bit of time. Let's say how we can make this better, make this more efficient and effective. Then we will talk. So next, Mark Lonergan will give board and public a very brief update regarding the status of implementing strategies to address the capacity issues on Route 51 and 82.
So Chair Kennedy and members of the board, excuse me, there is a brief write-up in the General Manager's report concerning this item, but we've taken some time to do a little bit more analysis using data from our automatic passenger counts, about 10 months worth, as well as our transportation logs regarding wheelchair pass-ups and passenger complaints. What we found is that ridership overall was consistently within the seated capacity of the bus. We didn't have any instances, or we had few instances, where we were above the seated capacity of the bus. But the real issue is the capacity specific to our passengers that ride using wheelchairs. Each bus has the capacity only for 2 wheelchairs at a time. And so we do occasionally have pass-ups as a consequence of that. RT's Director of Accessible Services, Janice Labrado, spent some time reviewing wheelchair pass-ups and found that overall our rate was very low, about 1% of our total ridership system-wide. And further, the pass-ups that did occur were related mostly, way over half of the pass-ups were related to the mix of ambulatory riders that have disabilities in the area that we use for securing wheelchairs. So we have an area in the buses that's generally reserved for people with disabilities, and sometimes we have people that are ambulatory and can move but are in that area and blocking the wheelchair securement. So as a short-term measure, we will be re-instructing, and this is an instruction our operators have already, to ask people to move, if they can, into further back into the bus, into a seated area, and allow us to free up the securement area. That's an imperfect solution. Sometimes people refuse to move. We have really no ability to delay the schedule in those situations, but we can certainly be a bit more aggressive. In our newer fleet, about half our fleet, our Gilligs, we've actually tried to separate the areas a bit. So the wheelchair securement area, we've tried to make just for wheelchairs, and then we've taken the next row back, designated for other folks with disabilities. That hasn't helped a lot, but we're trying to move in that direction. So that's what we've done with that. The typical way of addressing this, as I mentioned in the GM's write-up, is to increase service frequency overall, and of course that's the ultimate solution. It's not one right now that we can, we have the funding to support. Certainly we'll be looking at how we do this in the route optimization study, and as Mr. Lee mentioned, some of our microtransit services that we'll be rolling out over the next few months may help alleviate some of this problem as well.
Thank you. Any questions? Is that it? Yes. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Lee. We do have 3 cards. Jeffrey Tartagia.
Jeffrey Tartagia. One of the suggestions, which Mike made many years, I think even years ago, is taking some of the 38 and the 51. Because the problem with the 51 is the fact that you have more riders going to destinations. You need to consider how you would, should we say, alter that capacity so that it will meet within those limits through there. That is a suggestion we're going to get there. Yeah, last week I rode the 30, and once again, that was also the case, that it is also full, so I was told I was going to have to wait another hour. The other thing that your, should we say, passenger study doesn't show you is how much irritated your riders are when they are passed over. And I've seen on the 51 repeated times where, because the bus is full, riders on, shall we say, Broadway are, shall we say, left waiting. Sometimes there will be one within 2 minutes. Sometimes it may be 15 or 20 minutes. There is a consistency problem where sometimes 3 or 4 will be going south on the 51 and no one's going north on the 51. It is just a series of issues that needs to be figured out and addressed, and it is something operations and dispatch needs to figure out how more efficiently that 51 can be directed.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Rick Hodgkins. Microphone is coming.
I hear some people talking outside the doors here, and it was hard for me to hear Jeffrey. Just a point of order. Okay, real quickly about microtransit and Smart Ride. I have not used the service yet because it does not run on the weekends. When you will find me traveling, like on the first, particularly on the first Saturday of every month, I go to the Capitol for a meeting, so you won't, and I have to leave my house about 11 o'clock to get downtown before 1 o'clock to get there. And I just wish that I could take Smart Ride part of the way so I could, at least meet the one at Sunrise to go to Watanabe and whatnot, or at least go to Folsom and catch the light rail. With regards to what Mark said about the 51 and 82, what I've done is I am okay not having, even though I'm disabled myself, I am ambulatory. As long as I sit across from the back, if I have to move to the back, as long as I sit directly across from the back door of the bus, I'm okay. The reason why I need to sit near one of the doors, particularly either right next to or across from the door, in the case of the back, the middle of the bus, is because I move very slowly because I use a cane, and so if I'm nearest to the door, I'm able to get off the bus pretty fast when my stop comes. With regards to the rewards that we got, I am very excited. I've heard about it on Facebook. I am very excited. But by the same token, I'd like to shift gears just for the last part of my speech here and let everybody know, those here with me and those that are watching online tonight, as well as those who will be watching on Channel 14, that there is an effort to repeal SB 1. I don't know about any of you guys up on the board or what party affiliation you're with, but that I am very alarmed that the Republican Party statewide has launched an effort to repeal SB 1. If that happens, we can kiss our projects goodbye. I do not want that to happen. So everyone in this room, if you support transit, we need to join the STA and SACTRU and everyone and fight against the appeal. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike Barnbaum.
Yes, thank you, Chair Kennedy. To the last point made by the previous speaker, we have joined a coalition with our legislative advocates at the California Transit Association to go on record favoring Proposition 69 on the June ballot and making a concerted effort to oppose any effort to repeal SB 1 in whole or in part. What effort is going on to repeal it is disgusting, and we've joined with our legislative advocates on that and are looking to attend a reception that they're putting on May 22nd, starting at 5 o'clock on J Street, the kickoff to their legislative conference this year in Sacramento. That's next week. In regards to Route 51 and 82, those are very high ridership routes. Fully understand that, and that there isn't any funding at the moment, perhaps to have more frequent service. But Henry made a very good point about the $300,000 planning grant that was just learned about today. Whether that can go to improving frequency and or bus rapid transit, say on a major region-wide corridor like Santucci Boulevard, Watt Avenue, South Watt Avenue, Elk Grove, Florin Road, would be of benefit to the region. We heard from STA, clarification, Solano Transportation Authority, Executive Director Daryl Halls, last month that there's a regional measure called Regional Measure 3 in the Bay Area. Through research and interviewing him, we found it only is needing 50% of the population of the 9 Bay Area counties to pass this June. And if it does, it would improve the FAST service that we mentioned that's getting a CalSTA grant through TIRCP. And we thought maybe a regional measure in the SACOG region might be something you'd want to explore to see based on what RM3 does in the Bay Area this year, maybe to put a regional measure on the ballot in 2020. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Is it the last of our speakers on that?
Yes, it is.
If I may?
Yes, of course.
I just wanted to publicly thank all the advocates that are fighting hard to preserve SB1. Many of us on this board worked either publicly or behind the scenes to see that measure was passed, working with our legislative contingent and the administration, and it's very rewarding to see transit advocates like yourselves doing what I think you need to do, which is certainly not take for granted that it's going to stay intact. And so I do appreciate you making note of that at the podium this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Stern. Next item.
Item number 18, accept public comment on the Sacramento Regional Transit District preliminary fiscal year 19 operating and capital budgets. And also before you is a motion to continue the public hearing you're about to have to June 11th, 2018. Here to present is Brent Bernicker.
And I was just looking to accept public comment and just let you know that we have 3 outreaches scheduled. We've had one at the MAC committee, we've had one at Arden Fair Mall, and then we have one with SAC-TRU to go and seek more input from the public on this item.
Okay, thank you. The public hearing is open. We have first Jeffrey Tartagia.
Well, as having read through the preliminaries in a large format, thank you, I see $7.5 million is dealing with the SAC, shall we say, Connect card. I wonder where the $3 million that was borrowed from SACOG is in there. I raised the question at the MAC meeting in regards to the factor of you have 0 on your pie charts if you look at your preliminary budget on there, and you have no numbers. Today I went through a legislative hearing that used some charts, and they not only offer percentage, they also told me what the numbers were that went with the percentage. And that's something I do not see in this preliminary budget. And as I have suggested last year, the Paratransit Board embarked on a new method, removing a lot of your pie charts so that you had a better explanation of what things went where and how and to what effect through there. Because right now, there is a number of things that I would really like. Example I will use to you, you're doing a study project right now for that years ago had 6 million. My understanding was this year you had 1 million student riders. You said that it was going to cost you $100,000 in revenue. It's cost you already more than that. And the question mark is if by word of mouth it gets out and you return to, let's say, $3 million or 3 million riders, how much revenue from the $60 was before to the $20? It seemed to me on that one, it would have been a smarter idea that your, should we say, student pass would have been at $25 because based upon, should we say, of 20 days of ridership at the 135, you know, that seems like a more equitable return versus what you were getting for $20 to get you started out. These things are not, when you do these type of projects, in anywhere shown or demonstrated for, you know, your present budget. I do not know where the I-80 elevator in establishment is in there. I know that you in years past spent a bunch of money for a consultant to deal with when you were projecting replacing this at Roseville Road. So there should be somewhere item that are broken out an expense showing that. But now for the I-80 elevator that has been so long not repaired, these are just things that I see that I don't see in your preliminary budget in what you're explaining to what's going on, much less capital.
Thank you. Mike Barnbaum.
Yes, thank you, Chair Kennedy and members of the board. On the potential RT budget for the 18-19 fiscal year. Again, it was presented at the last board meeting on a PowerPoint with slides from staff. And staff did an excellent job in reporting the financials and what the budget outlook looks for the upcoming fiscal year. At the time, though, as you're aware, that meeting was in early April, and it was in late April where the TIRCP recommendations were handed out by CalSTA, with the formal vote coming, in fact, this Wednesday, I believe, according to SACOG Executive Director James Corliss. They're going to have a staff contingent in San Diego up through Wednesday and report back at their board meeting on Thursday morning back at SACOG. And then what you learned this morning about the $300,000 planning grant. One of the things we hear from people is we'd like to see more service, more frequency, and especially on high capacity routes. One idea we've been having, noticing the ridership that loves the new Morning Express. Today is the 6th day of that service, and it's been on time or early every day, monitoring it through the Amtrak app to check how the train arrival is doing. Sacramento Valley Station is just going to be a location of increased rail ridership, particularly for the San Joaquins. And the Capital Corridor has shown months of ridership increases on it as well. We would like to see if, when it comes to connectivity, Route 30 right now is the only bus route that RT provides at a 15-minute frequency, and it's an east-west corridor. In the previous item, and this kind of ties in with that in the budget, perhaps it might be needing to be looked at, taking a second look perhaps at Route 51 to serve the Sacramento Valley Station, improve the frequency of Route 30 to every 10 minutes, Route 51 to every 10 minutes, of which a regional transit bus is leaving the station every 5 minutes, capturing riders off of the two state corridors coming in. Now might be the budget to invest in this with the new money coming in that wasn't realized a month ago. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Rick Hodgkins.
Okay, here we go again. I have two recommendations on how we could further save money in the budget. My first recommendation, and I've said this year after year, and I know it sounds like a broken record, but if we have people that just drive to the light rail station and park their car there at a park and ride lot, I don't know how much we currently charge, but let's raise that price. I don't know if there's a cap or what, but when it comes to things like parking fees at light rail stations or vehicle license fees or gas taxes, as with SB1, it's time for people that can drive to help those that are not supposed to drive, preferably due to a disability and or whatever other reason they can't drive. Second would be to perhaps bring paratransit in-house, and I'm not the first one to say this. I heard another person, I think at the very last board meeting back in March when I was last here, mention this. Or no, it was February. I was last here. Heard someone else mention this. In fact, a good example would be taking the microtransit and diverting all the paratransit trips to microtransit. Steve Miller, thank you so much for, I think, giving me telling me that, yes, paratransit as we currently know it now costs a whole lot of money. The way paratransit as we know it now costs a whole lot of money. You have to call 2 days in advance, and depending on how far you live, you have to be picked up at a certain time. I have to be picked up, up to 2 hours before I need to be somewhere, whether it's in the Arden area and or down this way, like going to Amtrak. So if there's a way we could, just use the Smart Ride and microtransit to do all the paratransit instead of paratransit as we know it now. I don't know how the door-to-door would work, because, you have a lot more people that are going to be using microtransit, not just seniors and people with disabilities. And maybe for the general population is curb to curb, but perhaps seniors and people with disabilities, perhaps continuing the door-to-door, just bring it in-house. And speaking of microtransit and Smart Ride, one thing that I forgot to mention on the previous item is I had a lady on paratransit with me last week. I told her, have she used Smart Ride? And she says she will not use it again because somebody else, there were too many wheelchairs and they couldn't accommodate her. So we need to deal with that. So again, let's bring paratransit in-house if possible. And also, how about raise the parking fees at park and ride lots? Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. And that's all the cards I have. Are there any questions or comments on the board? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Vice Chair Hansen, second by Director Moran. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Motion carries at 100 votes. Next item, item number 19, resolution approving the amended and restated 1985 light rail system operations and maintenance agreement between the City of Sacramento and the Sacramento Regional Transit District. Introduced, presenting Neil Nance.
Thank you. Chair Kennedy, members of the board, the City of Sacramento and SAC-RT entered into the original light rail system operations and maintenance agreement a little over 33 years ago. The agreement provided SAC-RT with an encroachment permit to operate the light rail system within city right-of-way. The original agreement was approved during a time in which the city had concerns regarding the operations and maintenance of the light rail system. For the most part, the city and SAC-RT partnered through discrepancies. However, there were a handful of items that SAC-RT believed were not resolved in a balanced way. This revised agreement incorporates the lessons learned and the current processes we utilize today. The city agreed as part of the Transportation Development Partnership MOU to negotiate with SAC-RT in hopes of developing a reasonable and balanced agreement. The revised agreement provides more equitable distribution of costs, rights, and responsibilities. The issue paper outlines a couple of the more notable revisions, such as each party will bear all costs associated with their respective capital improvement projects. The scope of this agreement will automatically expand to include future SAC-RT major extensions of the light rail system. And when SAC-RT maintenance forces are actively performing work, the city will permit marked vehicles to park in available on-street parking spaces without charge. SAC-RT recognizes that without the strong leadership and support of Mayor Steinberg, the City Council, Director Chenier was a big help in this, as well as the City Manager Chan, this agreement opportunity would still be considered a challenge. Mr. Hector Perron, Mr. Sparky Harris, Mr. Ryan Moore, and other members of the city's staff work productively and collaboratively with SAC-RT's operations, legal, and engineering staff to develop the revised agreement. This agreement provides more evidence of the city and SAC-RT's strong partnership as we strive for our mutual goal of enhancing and improving mobility for the city and region. With that, staff recommends the board approve the amended and restated light rail system operations and maintenance agreement. Here for any questions.
Any questions? Motion?
I'll move it.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Thank you, Mr. Nance.
Thanks.
Motion carries at 100 votes. Next item, item number 20, information, intent to dispose of surplus property located at 7745 Laurie Way in Sacramento, California, presented by Brent Bernicker.
Okay, and as we have closed session and we will be reconvening, and these are informational items, brevity would be appreciated.
We will. Okay. I just wanted to start with introducing Eric Komar. He's our real estate manager, and he's going to go through this in record speed.
I'll be very brief. 7745 Laurie Way is a single-family property that Sacramento Regional Transit acquired back in 2013 as part of the South Line extension. We intended to, and we did build a sound wall in the previous owner's backyard, and because we required a significant portion of the property, we were required to offer to take the property from him and relocate him, which he accepted. We subsequently declared this property surplus back in 2014, and we've been working with the FTA on the disposition of it. They provided us some instructions back in 2016 in terms of how we can get rid of it and what we do with the funds. Like Brent mentioned, this is just an information item and no actions required at this time, but we did want to bring it to the board's attention that we intend to dispose of this property and come back at a future board meeting to get a delegation of authority to dispose of the property within a range determined by the board in closed session. And the reason for that is because this is a residential property and we want to cast the widest net to get the most potential purchasers. There's a possibility the transaction may proceed relatively quickly. So we'd like to have that authority, and we intend to come back at a future date to seek that.
Thank you. Any questions?
Great job.
Thank you, Mr. Kumar.
Next item.
Mr. Chair, this is just a part of our effort to be totally transparent for this type of, transactions.
Much appreciated. Next item.
Item number 21, information, offers received for surplus property located at Calvine Road and Albury Drive in Sacramento, California. And Brent Berniker is presenting.
I'm playing with the slides. Okay, so this is an information item again. No actions required by the board. The property we're referring to is about 4 acres of land located on the southeast quarter of Calvine Road and Albury Road. This is a more detailed view of the map. The parcel was originally acquired through a land swap. In January of 2015, it was deemed surplus. Soon after, staff requested our real estate broker to market the land and obtain some offers. And tonight we have 2 offers for consideration. The summary of the offers are in front of you. In just general, I'll cover it really quick, but the first offer was $1.6 million. This is from Catalyst Development Partners. There's an initial deposit of $100,000. There's a due diligence period of 90 days, and the close of escrow is no later than 18 months. The second, actually, I want to go back really quick. The other thing that's very important on this is the proposed use. The proposed use is multifamily housing at market rate. The second offer we have is from Calvine Development Partners. This is for $1.5 million with a $30,000 deposit, also an 18-month close of escrow. And as you look at the very bottom, the proposed use is a little less unspecified. It appears from discussing this with the developer, it would be a retail. So that could include a strip mall or a gas station or something to that effect. So based on that information, I want to go back to this. The subject property is no longer on a proposed light rail alignment. However, our long-range plan still has high-frequency bus included. Therefore, we believe offer 1 with Catalyst Development Partners most aligns with our TOD goals. And that's the summary of that offer. And so, as we said, staff will return to the board with some next steps on disposing this.
All right, Director Natoli.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And by the way, this is right at the boundary between Supervisor Kennedy's and Supervisor Natoli's district here. And I wanted to just offer some comments here. One, I do believe we have an easement, if not ownership of property that lies to the east along the Calvine corridor, which was going to be to accommodate the light rail line at one time. There's a wide right-of-way there. I don't know.
Feet.
Yeah, it's fairly wide. And whether we have easement over that, you're going to need to check.
Okay.
Because I know we've maintained a portion of that. You have a post and cable along a portion that abuts Calvine Road to the south there. And if we can check that, because as we're looking at if you look to the east of the red there, be to the right, all the way up to to about Short Road, where Short Road comes in at a T intersection there.
Okay.
And I guess one concern I want to express is as we dispose of this property, we still have a remnant piece, either easement and or fee title. I think providing for long-term maintenance of that piece of property, if we're not going to put rail in there, not going to use it for any other public purposes. As you all both know, Monterey Trails High School comes right up to the property there, and there's a drainage basin as well. And so I guess I'd like us to take a look at it a little broader scope as we look at this real estate transaction, that if we're going to pull money out of this property, that we look at what any long-term maintenance responsibility would go with either an adjacent easement and or fee title for property to the east.
Okay.
Secondly, I would just say as you look at the multifamily development, market rate, the property right across the street is market rate. I know we worked very closely with the developer at the time, probably 12, 15 years ago now, on that project. As far as design, its interface certainly with Calvine Road for livability. And those are planning items for the county, but nonetheless, as we look at disposing of this property, I want to be sure we touch on that. And lastly, I would ask that we reach out to Elk Grove Unified School District to be sure that they're, aware of what we're doing and whether they would have any use. They may not have looked at this as for any public purpose. They have a pretty good size property there, but there might be some adjacent uses and or, again, I'd like to make sure we touch base with them as well, so.
Okay.
Great.
Good, thanks.
We'll follow up with that and bring
Give you my question.
Okay. Yeah.
Director Tully, I did meet with the potential developer some time ago, and I believe they are in touch with Elk Grove. So,
Are they? Okay.
yeah.
All right, good. Yeah, David, I don't know if they came and saw you. They didn't come to see me, so.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad they came and saw you. That's good. But I would like to
We'll
make sure that
report
we-
back on
Yeah,
that.
don't leave some remnant piece there. We got to keep mowing that. We
That's a
either
good point.
plant it or do something with it, so.
I appreciate that, yep.
Well, the access to Monterey Trail.
Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, it is.
They could easily go.
All right. Thank you very much.
Next item, item 22 in your board packages is the Sacramento Placerville Transportation Quarter JPA written report. If Director Budge has anything further to add.
I have nothing further to add unless Mr. Natoli has a comment.
No.
We're cool.
Really good.
Moving on, the announcement of closed sessions. Conference with real estate negotiator pursuant to Government Code Section 54956-8, property 880 to 936 Arden Way, Sacramento. Board will recess to closed session at this time and return for item number 11.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Great.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Jeffrey?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Okay, we will reconvene and hear item number 11.
Item number 11. I lost my agenda. Here it is. Item number 11 again. Sorry.
Let's hear it read into the record just because I want to hold you all here longer than you need.
Item number 11, resolution approving the second and third amendments to the purchase and sale agreement between Sacramento Regional Transit District and Community Housing Works for the sale of 880 to 936 Arden Way.
Okay, any questions? Motion?
Move approval of the item.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
Motion carries at 100 votes.
All right, with that, we have nothing else. What's that? We're adjourned.
Oh, great. Okay.
And if you